What's your scariest camping experience? Solo camp in the middle of nowhere. When I woke up in the morning, someone had made a cup of tea and partially drunk it in the middle of the night. No sign of anyone anywhere. Sheer terror when I was a kid at Boy Scout summer camp. One kid left a couple airheads out on the picnic table. Everyone woke up in the middle of the night too. No joke, 30+ raccoons fighting over airheads and going into tents looking for more food. If you've never heard that, many hissing and growling raccoons at the same time, good for you. Camping in the Serengeti with Maasai tribe men as guards. Sitting around the fire when suddenly the Maazi looks out into the pitch blackness. Turns the flashlight on, illuminating the eyes of a lion 40 yards out. Just staring at us. I never heard a thing. I was tent camping in Arkansas around 2003-04. And the Blair Witch Project was still fresh on my mind. I was about 20 years old at the time. Around 2 to 3 in the morning, we're woken up by what sounds like a small child running around our tent, crying and trying to get in. I was thoroughly freaked out. Finally decided to open the tent, and there was a kid that couldn't have been more than 3 years old. Scared half to death and only wearing a diaper. I had lots of thought going through my head. But mostly, how the hell do I handle this? I can't really go campsite to campsite. The ranger office is closed and I'm standing there in the middle of the night holding a child that isn't mine. We had decided to call the cops, figuring it was the safest thing to do. Just then a lady walks down the trail and is like, "How did you get out?" The kid was saying, "Mama, Mama," and went straight to her. She nonchalantly said thank you and walked away. Now, as a parent, I can't imagine how much more that would freak me out if it were my kid. I was pretty young. Went camping with my dad in Alabama. It's late at night. The embers of the fire are dying down. We're about to go to sleep when we hear what I can only describe as a bone-chilling moan in the woods. We looked at each other and decided it was trees rubbing together. But then it happened 2 more times. My dad grabbed the flashlight and I walked behind him with a big stick, determined I would save him if something went wrong. Eventually we discover a woman lying on the ground, not far from our campsite. She was on a hill, with her head facing down, feet uphill, continuing to moan. Turns out she had so much to drink that she could hardly talk. But she was also camping out in these woods with her boyfriend. They had a big fight and he drove away, leaving her alone in the forest. She had seen our fire dying and wanted to give us the rest of her firewood before she left too, but had tripped and was too drunk to get up. We got her back to her campsite and made sure she wasn't driving anywhere that night. I'll never forget that moaning sound though. Thought our tent was being attacked by 3 bears. Turns out someone's dogs just got loose and the light outside made them look gigantic. I was about 8. I didn't want to sleep in the tent with my sister, so I slept on a cot under the stars. Woke up to a bear sniffing my head, neck. I was basically paralyzed with fear. The bear left me and went to sniff around for snacks. It made enough noise to wake my parents, who then scared T away. I moved my cot into my sister's tent immediately after. Went camping in deep Appalachia in a tent. Woke up to a weird feeling that I was laying on something. Then I felt it move. A snake had made its way under my tent and I think it was trying to get warm as it stopped moving. Right under where my back was. After me moving a bit, it finally went on its merry way. I'll never forget how it felt moving underneath me. I went on a road trip with some friends to Lake Chelan. We left late and got lost. This was before cell phones. We didn't have a map and trusted my friend's memory. So we pull off the road and decide to camp for the night at a grassy area. We have limited lights and quickly make our tent. We're woken in the morning by someone hitting the tent and screaming to get off his property. We'd inadvertently camped on some poor guy's lawn. We were just dumb 18-year-old kids but have never packed up camp that quickly before. Once in the wilderness, me and a couple of other guys, drunk as we were, started howling at the moon only to inadvertently attract real wolves. They showed up at our campsite about 1.5 hours later when we were in our hammocks getting ready to sleep. No harm done. They sniffed around for a couple of minutes and then went off. Guess they were disappointed in what they found and luckily not desperately hungry. Anyways, I was very scared and tried to remain completely still and silent during this brief encounter. I was camping once in the Up in Michigan, in a pretty secluded spot with distinct individual campsites. It was in the fall, so dead leaves were all over the ground. When we were settling into sleep, we started to hear these slow, consistent footsteps on the leaves. They'd walk around the campsite, circle our tent, just walk all around without any clear goal and without stopping. Obviously we assumed it was some kind of animal. But when we rushed out with a light there was nothing. I mean no sound. No trace of anything. Once we were back in the tent, these footsteps immediately started up again, and they didn't come from far away. They started up right next to our tent. We repeated this whole rigmarole probably 3 more times. Because of how distinct and close and creepy those footsteps were, and we never caught even a glimpse of what was walking around. The next morning we were sitting by the fire and started hearing the steps again, only to look down and realize it was the sound of multiple small frogs hopping around the campsite.